The hospital ship drifted quietly through space like a white angel among the stars. Its hull was painted bright white with large red crosses visible from every angle. The UHMS Hippocratic Dawn was enormous, nearly 2 kilometers long, and it carried over 3,000 medical staff. This was humanity's largest hospital ship, and it treated everyone who needed help. Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the recovery ward with a data pad in her hands. She was the chief medical officer, and she took her job seriously. Around her, patients from a dozen different species rested in medical beds. Some were human soldiers from the Terran Alliance. Others were Calthran warriors from the enemy empire. There were also civilians from neutral worlds who had been caught in the crossfire of this terrible war. "How is the Calthran patient in bed 7? Dr. Chen asked a nurse. "Stable, doctor. His arm will heal completely in 2 weeks," the nurse replied. Dr. Chen nodded and made a note. She didn't care which side her patients came from. A patient was a patient. Pain had no nationality. Suffering needed no passport. This was the way of all human medical personnel. They had taken an oath to heal, not to judge. In a private recovery room on the eastern wing, Dr. Marcus Webb sat at a small desk covered with holographic displays. He was not medical staff. He was a patient, though he barely acted like one. Webb was a quantum physicist, one of the smartest humans alive. His research station had been destroyed 3 months ago, when it accidentally ended up in a battle zone. He had been badly injured and was brought to the Hippocratic Dawn to recover. But Webb couldn't stop working. Even as his body healed, his mind raced forward. The equations floating in front of him would have made no sense to most people. They barely made sense to other physicists. Webb was working on something revolutionary, something that could change everything. He called it the causality engine, though he hadn't told anyone what it really did. "Dr. Webb, you should rest," said Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez, his assigned assistant. She was a young officer who had been helping him organize his research since he arrived. "I'll rest when I'm done," Webb said quietly, adjusting another equation. "I'm so close, Emma, so very close." On the bridge of the ship, Captain James Morrison reviewed the day's reports. They were in neutral space, protected by the Galactic Conventions. No one was supposed to attack hospital ships. It was the most sacred rule in space warfare. Yet Morrison felt uneasy. The war was going badly for the Calthran Empire, and desperate enemies did desperate things. Far away, on a Calthran battlecruiser, Admiral Krevnar stared at a tactical display. His empire was losing. World after world had fallen to human forces. His people were suffering. His career was ending. He needed something big, something dramatic, something that would turn the tide. "Admiral, there's a human hospital ship in the Velshan Nebula," reported his tactical officer. "I see it," Krevnar said coldly. "Sir, it's a protected vessel under the conventions. We can do whatever is necessary to win this war," Krevnar interrupted. "That ship serves human forces. It helps their soldiers fight another day. It is a legitimate target." "Admiral, please reconsider," said Commander Thelrus from the weapons station. "This is wrong. It goes against everything we believe." "Silence," Krevnar shouted. "Prepare weapons. We attack in 10 minutes. Back on the Hippocratic Dawn, Dr. Chen was checking on a young human soldier who had lost both legs. "We'll get you new ones," she promised him. "Good as the originals. You'll walk again." The soldier managed a weak smile. In the bed next to him, a Calthran warrior watched quietly. He had been her enemy 2 weeks ago. Now she was saving his life. He didn't understand humans, but he was starting to respect them. The attack came without warning. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. The Hippocratic Dawn shields were minimal. Treaties required hospital ships to be lightly defended. The first barrage tore through the southern medical bays. Explosions ripped through corridors. Fire spread quickly. Dr. Chen was thrown to the floor as the deck buckled. She heard screaming all around her. Pulling herself up, she saw that the ceiling had collapsed in the ward. Patients were trapped, crying for help. The young soldier was pinned under debris. The Calthran warrior was trying to free him with one arm, his other still healing. "Everyone stay calm," Dr. Chen shouted. She ran to help, pulling wreckage away with her bare hands. Another explosion shook the ship. Something hot and sharp hit her back, but she kept working. She had to save her patients. In his room, Webb was thrown against the wall as the ship shuddered. His displays shattered. Emergency lights flickered. Emma was bleeding from a head wound, but she was alive. Webb grabbed his research core, the device that held all his work. It was damaged, sparking dangerously. "We have to get out." Emma yelled. Another blast tore through the wall. Webb was lifted off his feet and thrown backward. Pain exploded through his body. He couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. The research core fell from his hands, cracked but still active. Emma crawled to him, her own injuries forgotten. "Marcus, stay with me." With his last strength, Webb touched the research core. "Transmit everything," he whispered. "All my work. Send it Earth." Dr. Chen managed to free 3 patients before the ceiling came down completely. She threw herself over the young Calthran warrior, protecting him with her own body. She felt crushing weight, then nothing at all. Captain Morrison stood on the dying bridge, transmitting emergency signals to any ship nearby. The Hippocratic dawn was breaking apart. Escape pods launched in every direction, but hundreds were trapped inside. He could see the Calthran battlecruiser on his cracked view screen, turning away as if ashamed of what it had done. "Transmission sent," Emma gasped, pressing the button on Webb's core. "Your work is safe." Webb's eyes closed. Around them, the greatest hospital ship humanity had ever built died quietly in space, taking hundreds of innocent souls with it. The galaxy would never forget what happened next. The footage spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every news channel, every data stream, every communication network showed the same horrifying images. The UHMS Hippocratic Dawn, humanity's greatest symbol of mercy, torn apart by deliberate weapons fire, bodies floating in space, escape pods carrying the few survivors, the bright white hull with its red crosses, now black and burning. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. 47 different species sent emergency messages to their embassies. The Galactic Council called an emergency session within hours. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What would humanity do? The Calthran Empire's first response was predictable. Their official statement claimed it was a terrible accident. Admiral Krevnar had mistaken the hospital ship for a military transport. It was an unfortunate error in the fog of war. They offered formal apologies and promised an investigation. No one believed them. The attack had lasted 17 minutes. The hospital markings had been clearly visible. Ships had hailed the battlecruiser 12 times during the attack, begging them to stop. Krevnar had continued firing until the Hippocratic Dawn was destroyed. Within the Calthran Empire itself, reactions were mixed. Some celebrated it as a bold strike against the enemy. Others were horrified. Commander Thelras, who had refused to fire on the hospital ship, was arrested for insubordination. Several other officers who had protested were also imprisoned. Admiral Krevnar became a hero to the hardliners, proof that the Empire could still strike fear into human hearts. But the humans were not responding with fear. They were responding with something else entirely. The Terran Parliament convened an emergency session in Geneva. Every representative was present, either in person or by hologram. The session was closed to the public, sealed from all outside observation. But when the vote was completed, the announcement was broadcast to every corner of human space. The Terran Alliance hereby invokes Article 7 of our Constitution, declared Speaker Patricia Liu, her voice steady and cold. The Ghost Protocol is now active. All citizens are recalled. All diplomatic personnel will return to Terran space immediately. All trade agreements are suspended. All communication channels are restricted to emergency use only. The alien ambassadors listening to this announcement looked confused. They had never heard of the Ghost Protocol. It was not mentioned in any treaty or agreement with humanity. When they tried to ask questions, they found that human officials were not answering. Within 6 hours, every human diplomat had left their post. Every human merchant ship had stopped its routes and turned toward home. Every human civilian living outside Terran space received a single message: return home immediately. This is not a drill. At the Galactic Council, the ambassador from Vexar Prime spoke nervously. "What is the Ghost Protocol? We have no records of this." "Neither do we," admitted the Threxian ambassador. "But I do not like the sound of it. When humans go quiet, when they withdraw completely, something is coming." Far from the political chaos in a secure military facility on Mars, Dr. Yuki Tanaka sat in a dark room staring at holographic displays. She had been Marcus Webb's colleague for 15 years. They had studied together, published papers together, argued over quantum theories in countless coffee shops. Now he was dead, and she was looking at his final gift to humanity. "This shouldn't be possible," she whispered, scrolling through equations that made reality itself seem flexible. Marcus, what did you discover? Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez sat across from her, bandages still visible on her arms and face. She had survived the attack and brought Webb's research core with her. He called it the causality engine, Emma said quietly. He said it would change everything. He wanted to share it with the galaxy, to use it for peaceful exploration. He solved it, Tanaka said, her voice full of awe and sadness. The unified field theory, quantum entanglement manipulation, space-time topology, zero-point energy extraction. He solved everything. This isn't just revolutionary science. This is the key to reality itself. A military general stepped into the room. His face was hard, his uniform crisp. Can we use it? He asked directly. Tanaka looked at him for a long moment. Part of her wanted to say no. Marcus had been a peaceful man, a healer of cosmic mysteries, not a weapon designer. But then she thought of him dying on that ship, crushed and broken while helping others. She thought of Dr. Chen, who had treated everyone with equal compassion. She thought of all those innocent people killed for no reason except cruelty. Yes, she said finally, we can use it. But Marcus's research is incomplete. He was still building the theoretical framework. It will take time to make it functional. How much time? The general asked. 6 months, maybe less if we dedicate every resource we have. The general nodded. You have unlimited resources. Every scientist, every engineer, every facility you need. Money is not an issue. Time is not an issue. Make it work, Dr. Tanaka. Make it work, and we will show the galaxy why you do not attack those who heal. Across human space, the largest scientific project in history began in absolute secrecy. Thousands of the best minds were brought together. Space stations were converted into research laboratories. Ship production was halted so that new vessels could be designed around Webb's principles. The economy shifted entirely toward a single goal. The rest of the galaxy watched nervously. Human ships disappeared from trade routes. Human voices went silent on communication channels. The border around Terran space became absolute. Any probe or ship that approached the boundary simply vanished, its signals lost completely. What are they building? Asked the Vexar ambassador at a council meeting 3 months after the attack. Something that terrifies me, replied the Threxian ambassador honestly. Look at the energy readings from the Sol system. Look at the power consumption. They are building something that requires more energy than our entire civilization uses. Meanwhile, Admiral Krevnar was promoted to Supreme Fleet Commander. The hardliners in the Calthran government praised his bold action. He gave speeches about how humanity had retreated in fear, how the Empire's strength had won the day, how they would soon crush the humans completely now that they had shown weakness. Not everyone agreed. There were protests on several Calthran worlds. Many citizens remembered the hospital ship, remembered the images of doctors dying while trying to save patients from both sides. But these voices were silenced. The Empire was committed to its course. 6 months after the attack, Dr. Tanaka stood before an assembly of human leaders. Behind her was a holographic display showing a ship unlike anything that had ever been built. It was beautiful and terrible, a vessel that seemed to bend light around itself as if reality was uncertain whether it truly existed. We have done it, she said simply. We have built the causality engine. We have created ships that can manipulate the fundamental structure of space-time, and we have weaponized Marcus Webb's greatest discovery. She paused, looking at each leader in turn. There is no defense against this. There is no countermeasure. We can reach into the past and change what happened. We can make things cease to ever have existed. We can rewrite causality itself. And Dr. Webb's other discovery? Asked the speaker. The one in his final notes? Tanaka smiled sadly. We can bring them back. All of them. The Hippocratic Dawn, Dr. Chen, Marcus himself. We can restore what was taken. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the speaker stood. Prepare the fleet. It is time the galaxy learned what happens when you attack humanity's healers. It is time they learned that mercy is not weakness. It is time for justice. In the darkness of space, the first ship powered by the causality engine came to life. It was named the Marcus Webb, and it would reshape the universe. 6 months had passed since humanity went silent and the galaxy was starting to panic, not because of war or violence, but because of absence. The humans were simply gone, and no one knew what they were doing behind their sealed borders. The economic impact hit first. Human traders had been everywhere, carrying goods between worlds, connecting markets, providing services that other species now realized they had depended on completely. Without them, supply chains collapsed. Medicines that humans manufactured became scarce. Technologies that human engineers maintained began to fail. Entire industries that had relied on human expertise started to crumble. We should have never let ourselves become so dependent, complained the Vexar trade minister at a council meeting. Now look at us, begging at a closed door. The door is more than closed, said the Threxian science officer, displaying a hologram. Look at these sensor readings from the Terran border. Every probe we send simply disappears. Not destroyed, not turned back. It just ceases to exist the moment it crosses into human space. The energy signatures are unlike anything we have ever seen. What could cause that? Asked a dozen voices at once. The science officer shook his head slowly. I do not know. But whatever the humans are building requires power on a scale we can barely measure. The Sol system is drawing energy from sources we cannot identify. Space itself seems to be warping around their territory. In the Kalthran Empire, the mood was very different. Admiral Krevnar, now Supreme Fleet Commander, stood before the High Council with confidence. The humans are hiding because they are afraid, he declared. They know they cannot match our military might. They have withdrawn to lick their wounds. Or they are preparing something, said Council Member Vresh, one of the few moderate voices remaining in government. We should consider negotiating, offering reparations for the hospital ship incident. Incident? Krevnar laughed harshly. It was a strategic victory, and there will be no negotiations. We press our advantage now while the humans cower in fear. The Kalthran fleets moved forward, conquering neutral zones that humanity had once protected. Small independent worlds fell quickly without human intervention. Refugees fled in every direction, but there was nowhere safe to go. The Terran border remained sealed. No one could enter human space, not even those begging for protection. Why won't they help us? Cried a Denarian mother, clutching her child as Kalthran soldiers occupied her world. Where are the humans? They always helped before, but humanity remained silent. The galaxy began to wonder if perhaps Krevnar was right. Perhaps they were simply afraid. Perhaps the hospital ship attack had broken something in the human spirit. Perhaps they were not the strong protectors everyone had believed them to be. Deep in Kalthran territory, in a cold prison cell, Commander Thelrus sat in darkness. He had been imprisoned for refusing to fire on the hospital ship. Many others who had protested were in cells nearby. At night, they whispered to each other through the walls. Do you think the humans will come for us? Asked a young officer. Why would they? Thelrus replied quietly. We are Kalthran. We are the enemy. But you tried to stop it. You refused the order. Thelrus was silent for a moment. I hope they remember that, he said finally. Because when the humans finally respond, I do not think anyone in this empire will be safe. The proof came 3 months later, transmitted on every channel in the galaxy simultaneously. It was a short message, but it changed everything. Dr. Yuki Tanaka's face appeared on screens across thousands of worlds. She looked tired but determined. Behind her, complex equations floated in holographic displays. The transmission was untraceable, impossible to block, and absolutely clear. I am Dr. Yuki Tanaka, former colleague of Dr. Marcus Webb, she began. For those who do not know, Dr. Webb was the greatest scientific mind in 12,000 years of recorded galactic history. He was a quantum physicist who solved problems that most species believed were impossible to solve. He unified every field theory. He mapped the structure of causality itself. He unlocked the secrets of space-time manipulation. She paused, and her expression hardened. Dr. Webb was killed 6 months ago aboard the UHMS Hippocratic Dawn. He died while recovering from injuries sustained in war. He died in a hospital ship that was protected by every law and treaty in the galaxy. He died while doctors like Sarah Chen worked to save lives from every species, friend and enemy alike. Tanaka gestured to the equations behind her. This is a fraction of Dr. Webb's work. A tiny glimpse of what he discovered. I show this to the scientific community so you understand what was lost. So you understand what potential was destroyed when Admiral Krevnar ordered that attack. Scientists across the galaxy stared at the equations in shock. Even the fragment Tanaka showed was revolutionary. It suggested technologies that seemed like magic, abilities that seemed like the powers of gods. Dr. Webb was going to share his discoveries freely, Tanaka continued. He believed that all species should benefit from scientific advancement. He wanted to uplift the entire galaxy, He dreamed of a future where poverty, disease, and suffering were eliminated through technology. Her voice grew cold. You killed him while he worked on that dream. You killed the doctors who healed your own soldiers. You killed the nurses who asked for nothing except the chance to ease pain. You attacked the very symbol of compassion itself. The transmission showed images from the attack. The Hippocratic dawn exploding. Bodies floating in space. Escape pods desperately fleeing. Dr. Chen's last moments protecting a wounded Calthran warrior with her own body. We would have shared everything, Tanaka said quietly. But you made a different choice. You chose cruelty over compassion. You chose violence over healing. So now we will use Dr. Webb's discoveries differently. Not to uplift you, not to help you, but to make absolutely certain that what you did can never happen again. The screen showed a new image, a ship unlike anything ever seen before. It seemed to exist in multiple states at once, its shape uncertain, reality bending around it like water around a stone. This is the Marcus Webb, the flagship of humanity's new fleet. It is powered by technology you cannot comprehend. It can do things you would call impossible. And it is coming. Tanaka leaned forward, her eyes intense. You should have left us alone. You should have honored the sanctity of hospital ships. You should have respected those who heal. Instead, you murdered them. Now you will learn what happens when you attack humanity's mercy. The transmission ended as suddenly as it began. For a moment, the galaxy was silent. Then the panic truly began. The Galactic Council dissolved into chaos. Species began taking sides or declaring neutrality. Trade stopped completely as no one knew what would happen next. The Calthran Empire declared a state of emergency and mobilized all military forces. Admiral Krevnar gave speeches about standing strong against human threats. But in private, even he felt the first touch of fear. He watched the recordings of that strange ship, the Marcus Webb, and wondered what it could do. He wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. In his cell, Commander Thelrus heard the transmission through the prison's communication system. He closed his eyes and whispered a prayer to the old gods. Not for victory, not for survival, just for justice, whatever form it might take. 3 days after the transmission, long-range sensors detected something approaching from human space. It was not one ship. It was a fleet. And at its center was the Marcus Webb, reality itself seeming to bend and twist as it moved through space. The humans were coming, and they were bringing something the galaxy had never seen before. The universe was about to remember why mercy should never be mistaken for weakness. The human fleet appeared without warning in neutral space, just outside Calthran territory. They did not emerge from faster-than-light travel like normal ships. They simply began to exist, as if reality decided they had always been there but had forgotten to notice until that moment. There were 50 ships in total, and each one was wrong in ways that hurt to look at. Their hulls curved in impossible geometries. Light bent around them strangely. Space itself seemed uncertain about their exact position, showing them in multiple places at once. These were not ships built with normal technology. These were vessels that operated on principles the galaxy did not understand. At the center of the formation was the flagship, the Marcus Webb. It was the largest and the strangest, a massive vessel that seemed to exist partially in another dimension. Its very presence made sensors malfunction and cameras glitch. Looking at it made observers feel dizzy, as if their brains could not fully process what they were seeing. Admiral Kenji Yamamoto stood on the bridge of the Marcus Webb, his hands clasped behind his back. He was a veteran of 30 years, a man who had seen terrible battles and kept his calm through all of them. But even he felt strange standing on the ship, surrounded by technology that seemed more like magic than science. Open all channels, he ordered. Broadcast to the entire galaxy. His face appeared on screens everywhere, from the Galactic Council chambers to the smallest communication devices on distant worlds. His expression was calm but absolutely cold. I am Admiral Kenji Yamamoto of the Terran Alliance, he began. 6 months ago, Admiral Krevnar of the Calthran Empire ordered a deliberate attack on the UHMS Hippocratic Dawn, a hospital ship protected by every law and treaty known to civilized species. 372 people died in that attack. Doctors, nurses, patients from multiple species. People who had dedicated their lives to healing, not harming. He paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. We are not here to make war on the Calthran people. We are not here to conquer or destroy. We are here for justice. We are here to ensure that what happened to the Hippocratic Dawn never happens again to anyone, anywhere. On Calthrin Prime, the homeworld of the Empire, Admiral Krevnar watched the broadcast with growing anger and fear. He had assembled the entire fleet, thousands of warships ready for battle. Surely the humans could not stand against such numbers, no matter how strange their ships looked. "Prepare to engage," he ordered. "All weapons ready. When they cross into our territory, we destroy them." But Admiral Yamamoto was not finished speaking. "We have developed technology that you cannot comprehend," he continued. Dr. Marcus Webb, before his death, solved the deepest mysteries of the universe. He learned how to manipulate causality itself, how to edit the fundamental structure of reality, how to make changes to what was, what is, and what will be. Across the galaxy, scientists felt their blood run cold. They understood the implications immediately. What Yamamoto was describing was not just a weapon. It was the ability to rewrite existence itself. "We call it the causality engine," Yamamoto said. "And now we will demonstrate what it can do." The Marcus Webb began to glow with a strange light that hurt to look at directly. Energy built around it. Not normal energy, but something deeper, something that touched the very fabric of space-time. Every sensor in the sector went insane, detecting readings that should have been impossible. "Target locked," reported the tactical officer on the Marcus Webb, her voice steady despite what she was about to do. "All vessels, weapons platforms, and military installations used in the attack on the Hippocratic Dawn have been identified. Activate the causality engine," Admiral Yamamoto ordered quietly. Reality rippled like a stone thrown into still water. The effect spread outward from the Marcus Webb in waves that could not be seen but could certainly be felt. Every living being in 100 light-years suddenly felt dizzy, as if the universe had skipped a beat. On Calthrin Prime, Admiral Krevnar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Pride of Empire, preparing to give the order to fire. Suddenly, he felt weightless. He looked down and saw stars beneath his feet. He was floating in space in a survival suit, surrounded by debris where his ship had been. Across the Calthrin fleet, ships began to disappear. Not explode, not get destroyed. They simply ceased to exist along with everyone aboard them. One moment they were there, solid and real. The next moment there was only empty space, as if they had never been built at all. Weapons platforms around Calthrin worlds vanished. Military bases flickered out of existence. Supply depots disappeared. Everything that had been used in the attack on the Hippocratic Dawn, or built with resources from that attack, simply stopped existing. The universe edited itself, removing those things from causality. Krevnar floated in space, watching in horror as his entire fleet vanished around him. Thousands of ships, millions of personnel, all gone, not killed, erased, made to have never existed in the first place. But the people themselves were still there, floating in space in emergency suits that had been part of the ship's safety equipment, and thus had existed before the attack. They were alive, but everything they had been aboard was gone. It was a mercy and a terror at the same time. Rescue ships from neutral worlds rushed to pick up the floating Calthrin personnel. As they were brought aboard, they were silent with shock. They had experienced something impossible. They had been standing on solid decks, and then suddenly they were in space with no ship around them, as if it had been a dream all along. Admiral Yamamoto's voice broadcast again. "This is humanity's judgment. We have removed the weapons and ships used in that atrocity from existence, but we have spared the people. They will live. They will remember. They will tell the story of what happens when you attack those who heal." Then something even more impossible happened. Space rippled again, but differently this time. The effect was gentler, more careful, like reality being healed rather than edited. In neutral space, near where the Hippocratic Dawn had died, light began to gather. It grew brighter and brighter, forming into a familiar shape. Metal, white hull, red crosses. The hospital ship was reforming, being restored, pulled back from the moments after the attack. On Earth in Geneva, at the Memorial for the Fallen, people gasped as the names on the wall began to fade. Not because they were being forgotten, but because those people were no longer fallen. They were alive again, restored along with their ship. Dr. Sarah Chen opened her eyes in the medical bay of the Hippocratic Dawn, confused. A moment ago she had been dying, crushed under debris. Now she was standing, unharmed on a ship that was whole and undamaged. Around her, other staff members were looking at their hands in wonder, alive when they should have been dead. In his recovery room, Dr. Marcus Webb sat at his desk, staring at equations. Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez stood beside him, both of them trying to understand what had happened. They remembered dying. They remembered the attack. But now they were alive and the ship was intact. "Did we die?" Emma whispered. "Or did we dream it?" Webb looked at his research core, at the complete equations for the causality engine. "We died," he said slowly. "And then someone changed it. Someone used my work to bring us back." Admiral Yamamoto's final broadcast echoed across the galaxy. Dr. Webb wanted to share his discoveries to help everyone. "You killed him for it, so we used his discoveries to do two things. First, to erase the weapons of atrocity. Second, to restore what was taken. The Hippocratic Dawn lives again. Dr. Chen lives again. Dr. Webb lives again. All those you murdered have been returned." He leaned forward, his expression intense. "But the memory remains. Everyone remembers what happened. The Kalthrin remember attacking. We remember defending. The galaxy remembers the crime. Only the consequences have been edited. This is justice. This is mercy. This is the new reality." The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, beings of every species sat in stunned silence. Humanity had done something that should have been impossible. They had reached into the past and changed it, but carefully, precisely, to punish the guilty while saving the innocent. And they had brought back their dead as if death itself had no power over them anymore. The universe had learned a terrible and wonderful lesson. Mercy is not weakness, and those who attack humanity's compassion will face something far worse than war. They will face the wrath of a species that can rewrite reality itself. 3 days after the demonstration, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Every species sent representatives. Even those who had no stake in the war came to witness what would happen next. The chamber was more crowded than it had been in centuries. Admiral Yamamoto stood before them not as a conqueror but as a teacher. Beside him stood Dr. Yuki Tanaka and incredibly Dr. Marcus Webb himself, alive and well. The sight of Webb, a man the galaxy had watched die standing before them, was enough to prove that everything humanity had claimed was true. "We offer you a choice," Yamamoto began simply. "We have developed technology that can enforce peace, not through weapons or threats, but through the fundamental laws of reality itself. We can create a zone where certain actions simply cannot have lasting consequences, where violence against the innocent is automatically corrected." He gestured, and a hologram appeared showing the causality engine network. "We call this the sphere of perfect memory. Within this sphere, any attack on medical personnel, hospital ships, or civilian refugees will trigger an automatic response. The weapons used will be erased from causality. The ships that launched the attack will cease to have existed, but the attackers themselves will live, floating in space, saved by their emergency equipment." Dr. Tanaka stepped forward. "The victims will be restored. The damage will be healed. The sphere will remember what happened and correct it. Not by changing the past completely, but by removing only the harmful elements while preserving everything else. This is not time travel in the traditional sense," Webb added, his quiet voice carrying through the chamber. "We are not creating paradoxes or alternate timelines. We are editing causality with surgical precision. Think of it as the universe itself rejecting certain actions the way a body rejects a toxin." The Vexar ambassador stood slowly. "You are describing the power to play God, to decide what is allowed to exist and what is not. Who gives you this authority?" "No one," Yamamoto replied honestly. "We took this authority because we could, and because it was necessary. You watched a hospital ship be destroyed. You watched doctors die while helping everyone, friend and enemy alike. You watched and you did nothing, so we acted. But we offer you partnership," Tanaka said quickly. "The sphere is expanding slowly, 1 light year per week. Eventually it will encompass the entire galaxy. When it does, certain rules will be absolute. Hospital ships cannot be attacked. Medical personnel are sacred. Refugees must be protected. Civilian populations cannot be targeted. These will not be laws that can be broken. They will be physical impossibilities." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species were horrified at the implications. Others were relieved. Many were simply confused, trying to understand technology that seemed like fantasy. The Threxian ambassador stood, his voice carrying authority. And what of sovereignty? What of our right to defend ourselves? To make our own choices? You keep all of that, Webb answered. The sphere does not prevent war. It does not stop legitimate military conflict. It only prevents atrocities. You can still fight your battles, defend your territory, compete for resources. You just cannot do it by attacking those who heal or murdering innocents. Is that truly such a loss? In the back of the chamber, a small delegation from the Kalthran Empire sat in silence. They were not the hardliners who had supported Krevnar. Those leaders had been removed from power in the chaos following the fleet's erasure. These were moderates, reformers, people who had always opposed the hospital attack. Commander Thelras, released from prison after the old government fell, stood to speak. His voice was quiet but firm. I am Kalthran. My people committed the crime that started this. I say to you now, accept their offer. I was there. I tried to stop the attack. I was imprisoned for refusing to fire on defenseless healers. If this sphere had existed then, none of it would have happened. The Hippocratic Dawn would never have been attacked because it would have been impossible. He looked directly at Yamamoto. You humans could have erased us completely. You could have removed my entire species from causality. Instead, you erased only the weapons and restored your dead. You showed mercy even in your vengeance. This is more than we deserved. The chamber fell silent at his words. Slowly, one by one, species began to stand in agreement. Not all of them. Some refused, declaring they would never submit to human authority. But they were the minority. Over the following weeks, the Galactic Medical Accord was written and signed. 43 species agreed to its terms immediately. More joined each day as the sphere expanded, and they realized it was coming whether they agreed or not. The terms were simple. Hospital ships were absolutely inviolable. Medical personnel of any species treating anyone were under complete protection. Refugee ships could not be attacked. Civilian populations could not be targeted intentionally. Any violation would trigger automatic causality correction. But there were benefits too. Humanity agreed to share some of Webb's non-military discoveries. Better medical technology, improved agriculture, cleaner energy sources. Not everything, not the secrets of the causality engine itself, but enough to improve life across the galaxy. The Kalthran Empire underwent massive reformation. Commander Thelras became the new High Council leader, chosen because he had stood against the atrocity. Former Admiral Krevnar remained alive, floating in space until a neutral ship picked him up. He was tried for his crimes by his own people and imprisoned for life. Many Kalthran welcomed the changes. The hardliners who had supported endless war found themselves a minority. Those who had always valued honor and mercy came forward to rebuild their society. The empire did not fall, but it changed fundamentally. 6 months after the demonstration, Dr. Webb and Dr. Chen stood together on the observation deck of the Hippocratic Dawn. The ship was not only restored but improved. Now incorporating some of the new technology, it could create what they called protected pockets of space-time, areas that were completely sealed from outside attack. We died, Chen said softly, watching stars drift by. I remember it. The pain, the fear, the ceiling crushing me. We all remember, Webb agreed. That is part of the punishment for those who did it. Everyone remembers. The Kalthran remember their crime. We remember being victims. The galaxy remembers watching. Only the physical consequences were erased. Do you think it is right? What we did? Chen asked. Webb was quiet for a long moment. I created the causality engine to explore the universe, to understand reality. Instead, it became a weapon. But if it had to be a weapon, at least it is one that saves rather than destroys. We did not erase the Kalthran. We did not take revenge through genocide. We simply made it impossible for such cruelty to succeed. Chen nodded slowly. The universe now protects the healers. I never thought I would see such a thing. Across the galaxy, the sphere continued to expand. It grew at its steady pace 1 light-year per week, reaching out to embrace more and more worlds. As it touched each new system, the laws of reality shifted slightly. Hospital ships could not be harmed. Medical facilities were untouchable. Refugees were safe. Some species fought against it at first, testing the boundaries. A pirate fleet tried to raid a medical station. Their weapons simply failed to fire. Their ships' targeting systems could not lock onto anything marked with medical insignia. When they tried to board manually, they found themselves unable to cross the threshold. as if an invisible wall existed where none should be. Other species welcomed it gratefully. Worlds that had lived in fear of war crimes found themselves suddenly protected. Small colonies that had no defenses could now operate hospitals without worry. Medical personnel could travel anywhere, knowing they were absolutely safe. In Geneva, a new memorial was built. It was not for the dead, because those who had died on the Hippocratic dawn were alive again. Instead, it was a memorial for the event itself, for the moment that changed everything. The plaque read simply, "They healed. We remembered. The universe learned." Dr. Marcus Webb stood before that memorial 1 year after his death and resurrection. Around him, children played in the park, not knowing or caring about the cosmic powers that protected them. To them, it was simply the way things were. Hospitals were safe. Doctors were protected. That was reality. "Is this the future you wanted?" asked Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez, standing beside him. Webb smiled slightly. "No, I wanted to share my discoveries freely, to explore the cosmos in peace. But this is perhaps better. I wanted to understand the universe. Instead, I taught it compassion. I made mercy a fundamental force, like gravity or electromagnetism." High above Earth, the Marcus Webb orbited silently, ready to expand the sphere further. More ships like it were being built, each one carrying a piece of the causality engine network. Soon the sphere would encompass the entire galaxy. Eventually, perhaps it would reach beyond. In a schoolroom on a Calthran colony world, a teacher explained recent history to young students. "The humans changed reality itself," she said. "They made it so that attacking healers is impossible. Not illegal, not wrong, impossible. The universe itself rejects such actions now." A small child raised their hand. "Why did they do that?" The teacher smiled sadly. "Because they loved their doctors so much and valued mercy so highly, that they rewrote the laws of physics to protect those who heal. That is who humans are. That is what they believe. And now the entire universe must believe it too." Across the galaxy, in 1,000,000 different languages, the same story was told. How humanity had been attacked at their most vulnerable. How they had responded not with anger but with precision. How they had created a future where compassion was enforced by reality itself. Some called it tyranny. Others called it salvation. But everyone agreed on one thing. The universe had learned an important lesson. Do not attack those who heal. Do not harm those who help. Do not mistake mercy for weakness, because somewhere in the cosmos humanity watches, and they have the power to make the universe remember, to make reality itself reject cruelty, to turn back time for the innocent while leaving the guilty to face their choices. The age of unchecked brutality was over. The age of protected peace had begun, and at its center stood humanity, the species that loved their healers so much they changed the fundamental laws of existence to keep them safe. Dr. Webb returned to his work, developing new applications for the causality engine. Dr. Chen returned to her patients, treating everyone who needed help, knowing she was absolutely safe to do so. The Hippocratic dawn sailed through space, a white angel among the stars, forever protected by the very fabric of reality itself. And in the darkness between the stars, the sphere expanded ever outward, carrying with it a simple message. Mercy is sacred, healers are inviolable, and the universe itself will enforce compassion. This was humanity's gift and their warning to the galaxy. This was the legacy of a brilliant mind that reshaped the universe, not through destruction, but through an unshakable commitment to protecting those who dedicate their lives to healing others. The story would be remembered forever. The day humanity proved that some things are too important to be left to mere law or honor. Some things must be written into the very structure of reality itself.